Death of a Unicorn is a horror comedy where we follow Elliot, played by Paul Rudd. He's attending an important business meeting with the pharmaceutical company that he works for. He takes his daughter Ridley, played by Jenna Ortega, to meet the Leopold family that owns the company, but on the drive there, they hit a unicorn. They quickly discover that its biomatter has miraculous healing properties that could revolutionize the pharmaceutical industry. So they go forward trying to monopolize it, but the fallout of killing this unicorn proves to be a horrifying experience. So this movie blends satire, horror, and cheeseball comedy, and at the center of everything is a story about greed. It's about the ways people justify their actions in the service of profit. This movie illustrates the inhumane business practices of big pharma, but it also shows us the complicated line we sometimes have to walk between condemning greedy behavior and giving into it on behalf of supporting our loved ones. Elliot plays ball with the Leopolds, who are greedy on a blatantly villainous level because he wants to support his daughter, but even she recognizes the risks of keeping this unicorn body around. She takes her stance on the side of humanity rather than business, which naturally causes a lot of friction between her and the others. The Leopolds are your textbook greedy rich villains, so naturally their dynamic with Ridley, a young progressive college student, is very condescending and classist. And classism is one of the comedy engines of the movie. It uses the jarring and shallow disconnect between the rich and the working class as fuel for a lot of jokes. That and a lot of the dark humor around the handling of the unicorn. Between that and the horror comedy elements, the movie had quite a few laughs throughout it. The Leopold family's servant Griff, played by Anthony Carrigan, was a pretty insignificant character narratively, but he was honestly like the funniest character. The way that he's treated by the family and how he still maintains loyalty as a servant kept the movie entertaining even through some of the weaker parts. So the movie has some good laughs and some clever symbolism about big pharma, but it unfortunately gets to a point where it just feels like a bad Disney movie, both directorially and with the script. They settle for a lot of half-assed writing with hopes that you'll see the mediocrity as funny rather than flawed. Like at one point, a character needed to get down from a really high balcony, so like a Disney Channel sitcom, they actually just dropped the character from the high balcony into a bush and they were just completely unscathed. I think it was at that exact time that the movie actually literally cuts from being nighttime to just suddenly being daytime. Like there was no sunrise transitioning the two periods, and I had literally thought, did I miss something? Thankfully, I had one of my friends who I went to see the movie with confirm that no, I did not miss something, and it was actually just a mistake. There were plenty of cop-outs that felt kind of cheeky, like Ridley is conveniently an art history major solely for the purpose of looking at an old family photo, seeing a unicorn tapestry in the background, and being able to use that as a reference to learn about unicorn lore. Part of me really likes how they used the folkloric elements of unicorns as part of the story, but they sometimes also just felt like more cop-outs. For example, the daughter has a connection with unicorns based on the alleged nature of their species, and this connection serves as a little more than a deus ex machina in the end. There's also some vagueness about why this is connected to a situation that Ridley is grieving over, just trying to dance around spoilers, but those connections also felt really underdeveloped and kind of cheap. And then we have the Leopold family, and they were so incredibly cliche. It was as if the screenwriter asked ChatGPT to write them rich villains and then didn't think to flesh them out any further. Again, some of their snotty rich behavior was funny, but by the time we get halfway through the movie, they just feel like one-trick ponies, and their whole snotty rich asshole trope just gets old. About halfway through is when it also starts to feel like a horror movie for little value. The unicorn horror hovers over the line between trying to be serious and acknowledging the absurdities of using unicorns in a creature feature and being a bit campy, to the point where the tone just kind of feels sloppy. The blend of actual terror and slapstick comedy was pretty jarring. It just flip-flops back and forth between being serious and a little bit too absurd, to where it's just not very seamless. There is something to be said about the CGI quality. If it had been better, then perhaps it wouldn't be as hard to take the unicorn horror seriously. I can't say that I'm surprised that the CGI isn't top-notch, since it's an A24 movie with only a budget of $15 million, but yeah, it's pretty mediocre most of the time. It has some CGI that is pretty cool. There are a couple scenes where characters have these visions of these crazy psychedelic images, and they're really beautiful. But the unicorns looked pretty shoddy most of the time, which was kind of hard to ignore since they're really the big part of the movie. So I was digging the movie during the first act, and it still has some laughs beyond that, but it's unfortunately hindered by lazy and cheesy writing, and it kind of just felt like an extended episode of Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. I'm gonna say that this one is barely fine. It has some funny moments and some entertainment value. Just don't go into this one expecting peak cinema. Thanks for watching this review. If it brought you any value at all, please give it a like. It really does help the channel grow. I'll see you next week with a review perhaps of the Minecraft movie. We'll see.